lot of people have been asking me how they can promote their music in streaming platforms other than Spotify. For example, Apple Music, YouTube Music, Amazon Music, etc. And I've done some videos like this in the past, but I wanted to just do an experiment. Just run a campaign and show you what happened, trying to basically promote a song of my band's on every platform except Spotify, and I think what is a kind of a normal way to do it. Diving right in, we have a meta ad campaign, because that's just the most reliable way that most people watching can just go and run a campaign and promote their music. And essentially this campaign has been adapted to promote songs on Apple Music and everything else, Amazon Music and YouTube Music and Tidal and Deezer, etc. So we're going to walk through the campaign, but essentially it's a meta conversion campaign, sending people to a landing page, this one to be exact. And the strategy here was, instead of removing Spotify, I'm just going to demote them. Very often when you have Spotify first and you target the ad to go towards Spotify users, you end up with approximately 70 to 80% going to Spotify, typically, just because Spotify is king of the castle right now. So I wanted to try if we don't put Spotify first, but instead we put the next three biggest platforms. And by the way, Apple Music and Amazon pay roughly double Spotify. YouTube Music pays roughly triple Spotify. But I want to clarify that YouTube pays less than Spotify, but YouTube Music pays 2 to 3x what Spotify does. And Qobuz pays like 4 times more or something, or maybe it's still 3. Either way, they pay much more. They're just smaller. But these three are the next biggest after Spotify. I think like Apple and Amazon combined are almost equal to Spotify's market share, at least as of a couple years ago. Now, the other big difference, aside from reordering this landing page, and I'll show you what actually happened here in the stats in a sec, but if I go inside the campaign and we look at one of these audiences, we're not targeting for Spotify like we normally would, right? But normally we do like Spotify narrowed by alternative metal or alternative metal narrowed by Spotify, but instead we have alternative metal narrowed by basically everything else. YouTube Music, Tidal, Pandora, iTunes, Apple Music, Amazon Music. And I just wanted to see what happened, right? We're not removing Spotify. We're not excluding Spotify from the targeting. We are just not including them. And I wanted to see what would happen. So we're going to spend more time in this campaign in a sec, but now I can show you what actually happened. This is the breakdown, the magical breakdown. Still, most people went to Spotify, which, you know, they have by far the biggest market share. I've said that a few times in this video so far. So it makes sense, but it's nowhere near the 60 to 70% that they would normally take. It's 37%. So it's a little more than a third. And then the other numbers all went to the other platforms. YouTube, if I were to do this again, I probably would have removed it just to see if YouTube's not there, what happens. Everyone in the world has YouTube, right? You don't need an account to watch YouTube. You don't need to be a paying subscriber to have YouTube. But YouTube Music, you need an account. Apple Music, you need a paid account. And most people that use YouTube Music pay for YouTube Premium. That's why they use YouTube Music. So this is the breakdown. And with this, we can go into each of these platforms' respective analytics platforms and see what actually happened. First, I want to bring up, though, if I go here and I click on YouTube Music, I wanted to do something a little clever and send people to this playlist. And the reason why I did this is because when we jump over into Google Analytics, since YouTube doesn't have its own YouTube Music for Artists app, it's just blended into the YouTube Analytics platform, doing this allowed me to actually see what the ad was doing. So remember that we had 26 conversions over, well, right now it's the 15th. I don't know when this video goes live, but about a 1 week period of this campaign. If we jump over here, I have conveniently already graphed what was happening. So I went into YouTube Analytics, I went to the band, I went to traffic source, to playlist, and then I look at just that This Is Every Waking Moment playlist. And what this shows, right, the campaign started here, and you can see the pretty obvious growth. And it's nothing crazy, right? But we only had 26 conversions to YouTube Music. Remember, these 40 don't go to the playlist. I only had YouTube Music going to the playlist. The YouTube one just goes to the video. At least I believe it does. If I go here and I click on YouTube, it just goes to the video. It does not go to the playlist. So this is why I did it. This because this is just tracking the YouTube Music. Now, it is tracking every song. It's not just tracking that one song. But we sent 26 odd people here, right? Yeah, 26. You can't see exactly what we did, but the campaign started here. And let's say on average we were getting 6 a day, which is actually probably being a little bit generous. I would say the average after is just conservatively, let's say 16 a day. In reality, it seems to be significantly more than that. But that means we get an extra 10 streams per day for a week, which is like 70 plus extra streams on, again, across this catalog, but from 26 conversions. And I'm being pretty conservative on that guesstimate here, and I'm being pretty liberal on that estimate here. So it's definitely more than that in reality. So this confirmed, at least, right? In terms of running ads to promote your music on YouTube Music, this works. We run ads on Meta, they click on the link, they go to this playlist, we can track it, it's traceable, we can see how much we're putting in, we can see how much we're getting out. This is just a very small scale, but you can imagine, like I'm not spending like thousands of dollars in this campaign, I spent a couple hundred. And the purpose of this was just to see what can happen. You can imagine if you were to spend 100 times more than this, you're going to get 100 times more than this, and especially if more people go to YouTube Music. Now, what I haven't actually checked yet is if we go over to the video for YouTube. Now, this jump here is because last month we ran a small YouTube ad test. If you want to see how I set that video up, or that ad campaign up, click this little thing right here, because that's where I built that campaign. If we go to the last 28 days, we'll still see that little blip because it was less than a month ago. So we want to basically just look at just what happened in July, which is when I'm filming this, and maybe when you're seeing it. And then we'll hopefully see, do we see anything? And yes, we do, right? Because this was all after the ad campaign, but it pretty much died to zero. So running that YouTube ad campaign did a great job running the video, but not many people kept watching the video after that. Sometimes that happens, and sometimes it doesn't. But we're looking at here, and we can see this momentum happening. Now, same deal with the attribution. Like, we don't know exactly where all this is coming from. Over here, we can see that some of this is coming from playlists, and this is a big problem with YouTube Music versus YouTube. All the data is jumbled together, so part of this, I guarantee, is actually stuff tracking from YouTube Music, just the way that YouTube tracks this stuff. So if we want to be extra nerdy, which I think you do, we want to go into See More, and we want to go to Breakdown by Traffic Source, and then External, and then Total. Right, here is the graph. Cue dramatic music, or whatever. The campaign started here, and all of a sudden, you get external traffic. And that's what this ad would be, right? Because if it's coming from a playlist, it's going to track as a playlist. But if it's coming from external, it's going to count as external. If I back out and I go to playlist and external, you can see that these, and I'll take off total, this is basically those two separate traffic sources coming for this video. So again, not a ton. There's only 45 from external, which is what would be tracking here. But 40 people clicked, and a few of them watched more than once. And I'm sure some just didn't watch at all. So it's probably more like this 40 turned into 30 people, and then each person watched 1.5 times on average. That would be a pretty normal number. And that's the juice. Now, if we also look at some of these other stats, like YouTube search, channel pages, director unknown, browse features, you notice they're all going up when I ran this campaign. Suggested, nothing really there. But browse went up. Channel pages went up. YouTube search went up. Direct went up. External went up. Playlist went up. So all of these individual metrics are due to this ad campaign. We can clearly see they align with the dates. We can clearly see when I send them to the playlist, we can see the playlist graph go up and the external graph, but then it's triggering algorithmic traction in the form of browsing suggested, but also YouTube search, which is kind of pseudo-algorithmic in nature. It's like SEO. But it's also people seeing our ad, and then instead of clicking, they're typing in "every waking moment I am," and they're searching for it. And if I click on this, we could probably see some of that. This is just people searching for "every waking moment." We actually don't know what all the views are, apparently. We only know for this one, which maybe that's a privacy thing. But that's the YouTube side. Now, jumping over onto Apple Music, we're going to essentially do the same thing, but it's a little simpler. We can come here, and first of all, we can click on Plays, and we can look at the overall play graph over time. Remember, this campaign started, if I go to this graph, it started on the 7th, and this is here. And we do generally see across the whole catalog, things have been up, right? If you look at this graph over the last month, it's been going up, especially starting on the 7th. So that's your first data point that something's working. But if we look at Just I Am, which is the song that was promoted, then I turn off all songs, there's your graph. Cue dramatic music. But we have the 7th here. The campaign started. Averaging, we were getting like 6 a day. It's probably reasonable to assume. And after, we're getting 25 a day to consume. So we went, I'm just going to call it 5 to 25 to make the math easy. So it's 20, and then times 7 a week is 140 extra streams across it. 140 extra streams, considering that we got 55 clicks, means that people are actually listening a good amount here, right? That's a pretty big jump, and it's climbing too. And we saw the same thing on YouTube. Not only is the number going up, it's accelerating. And you might be thinking like, well, aren't you just spending more money? But the answer is no, right? If I go in here and we look at graph over the last 30 days, and we look at the spending, let me look at the whole campaign. Last 30 days, we spent $75, and we spent basically even like 10-ish a day across this whole window. So $10 a day caused all of that. It caused all that YouTube growth. It caused the YouTube Music growth. It caused the Apple Music growth. And we're not even talking about Spotify, which was actually the biggest thing that grew across this whole campaign by accident. Now, just because I need to bring it up, this is the stats on Spotify. This was actually where we got our most conversions across everything. And if I go back to the landing page and click on Spotify, I think I just send people directly to the song in this case. It's typically what I do, and I did. You won't really see much happening, right? This is the 7th, and there definitely was a rise, but it's not really much more than here. And the reason is this song's been out for several years now, and it has algorithmic traction, and that's already happening. So when you're driving like 80 people to a song that normally gets 1,150 listeners, it jumps up and down enough listeners in a day to just completely make it impossible to see. So if you ever have this happen, let's say you're in a band that has 100,000 monthly listeners, you probably run an ad campaign for even $500, and you're like, did that do anything? Because when you have no listeners, it's super obvious. But when you have 100,000, it's hard to tell. If that ever happens to you, one thing you can do is look at saves. And already you can immediately see the saves have gone up since this campaign started. And the reason is these types of ads cause a very high save rate. And so looking at the saves make it incredibly obvious what is actually happening, because your algorithmic traction is not going to give you many saves. Any playlisting you have happen, whether from Spotify or third parties, not going to give you saves. So it makes it very obvious if your ads are doing the trick. Sometimes playlist ads will do the same thing. You can kind of see it's gone up, but it's more subtle. And another thing you could do is you can segment by country. So you can cross-check your data here. We don't know how many went to Spotify from each, but we can see that the US was actually the #1 country. So overall, I would consider this campaign a pretty nice success. Like, we only spent $70-something. It says 80 because I'm looking at the lifetime, but the date is all a day behind, so it's really the 74.56 number. And we got all those data points for that price. And there's a few things I could have done to make this different that I've mentioned in previous videos. For example, we could have removed Spotify from the landing page entirely. So essentially made it so that Spotify wasn't even an option. And I found that when you do that, you just cause your cost to shoot up, because basically a lot of people are clicking and they're coming to this page and they want Spotify and they don't see it, so they bail. So instead of just losing those people entirely, just let them go to Spotify. Another thing you used to be able to do is there used to be a remove option where you could do like negative targeting. So you could target for all these things and then do like remove Spotify. That option has been taken away, unfortunately. So you can't do that anymore, but basically that caused the same problem, where because so few people use these other platforms in comparison to Spotify, it just made the whole campaign much more expensive. Like, we're getting a reasonable cost per conversion here of 47 cents, considering the fact that we're not targeting for Spotify. And also considering the fact that if we look at the country breakdown and look at the conversions, we're actually getting a lot in the US. Like, about a third of the conversions overall have come from the United States, which is a very expensive country. We're getting 39 cents a conversion in the US. We're actually doing better in the US than Brazil. We're doing better in Australia than Brazil. So overall, it's a pretty nice campaign. And that's why I set it up the way I did, because I wanted it to be traceable and I wanted it to be not like $1 a conversion. People will say, like, why don't you just market your music on Tidal all the time? It pays way better. The reality is just not enough people use Tidal. It's too hard to find them. It's too hard to target them, get them to click, jump over to the platform. It's too difficult. So you promote basically everything just except for Spotify, and just let the cookies fall where the cookies fall. I don't even know if that's the right saying. Now, if you want to see how you can run a campaign like this from start to finish, check out this video right here. But if you prefer an organized course with access to my country list and a community where you can ask questions, check out Spotify Growth Machine down here. Anyways, hope you found this helpful. Leave any comments you have in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video.